Full and uncut versions available on Patreon. Check in the description below.
Greetings once again, Pokemaniacs! Duuz-Diz-Din back again, with more of the Pokemon Adventures manga, where previously, thanks to Hop, Casey was able to get back one of her Pokemon, Kilo the Arrokuda, with them managing to rescue it from the maw of a Cramorant, with Hop catching said Cramorant. With that, Casey was able to go on, as well as Henry, to challenge Kabu and take the fire badge, with Hop quickly doing the same behind them. Casey is naturally overjoyed that her proclamation to get some attention on her missing Pokemon has actually worked out, while Henry has gone to meet Sonia at the Hammerlock Vault in order to study about the Darkest Days, during which Henry is challenged by Raihan, who mostly wants an easy victory in order to get some publicity shot. They suddenly encounter Sonia being chased by an Oranguru, who she had accidentally stepped on its makeshift fan. Henry manages to repair the fan with his, tool smithing skills and catches it in the process. With that, Henry, Sonia, and Raihan enter into the Hammerlock Vault, learning about the details of the Darkest Day from the tapestry inside, seeing that there's more to the legend than what was said in other parts of Galar. And when Henry reveals about Chairman Rose obtaining wishing stars on the sly, Raihan kind of suggests that Chairman Rose might be up to a little more than he seemed. While Henry is determined to question the chairman about his activity, he still has a gym battle to win, and thus he sets out for Stowonside Stadium to challenge the gym leader, Alistair. Can he defeat this Master of Ghosts and win another badge? Join me as I find out, won't you? It's only just now dawning on me that we haven't actually seen the gym badges for Galar in the manga, which I can kind of understand because they're very intricate, but at the same time, it's kind of a shame, as it's one of the most unique-looking badges out there. Oh well. Alistair commands his Gigantamax? I swear, every time I find out what you call it, Gigantamax Gengar, to use Max Ooze. The attack goes for Oranguru, with Marvin, I completely forgot the kid's name, calling out, "That's a poison-type Max move," and Casey, still muffling her mouth, shouts, "Dodge it, Henry!" And, of course, Henry would think the same thing, telling Oranguru to dodge. And Oranguru just barely manages to do just that. Oh, I also forgot. The title for this chapter is Chapter 14, Tiri, the Voice of the Master. I wonder what that means. But as Oranguru manages to dodge back, the announcer says, "A miraculously close dodge by Oranguru." The fierce battle continues here in Stowonside Stadium between gym leader Alistair and challenger Henry Sword. It's a 3-on-3 knockout competition, and Alistair is already on his third Pokemon, Gengar. Meanwhile, challenger Henry remains only on his second, Oranguru, but with a type advantage and unable to switch out thanks to G-Max Terra. Henry thinks to himself, "This is trouble. I thought we'd be able to use Fanguru's fan and get them to use 2 less effective moves so their Dynamax will wear off. Maybe this is because I wasn't able to do maintenance or reinforce its fan. We might be better off if I don't rely on always being able to use the fan." Suddenly, a voice creeps into his mind, saying, "Improving the gear alone brings no improvements to its user." Henry questions this voice, and then the voice then says, "Have you forgotten that, Sword?" Henry looks around saying, "Master? Master? This is Master." Marvin turns to Casey saying, "What do you think's going on with Sword? He isn't fighting back." Suddenly, a presence comes up next to Marvin saying, "Forget fighting back. He hasn't even noticed how much damage his Oranguru's taking." Marvin turns saying, "Bede? Wait, how much damage?" Bede informs Marvin, "Its dodge wasn't perfect. That Max Ooze just now was the Dynamax version of Venoshock. at the cost of his ability to poison opponents, its physical force is on another level. Gengar's used 2 moves. After one more, it'll return to its standard form. Either way, though, Oranguru won't be able to take one more hit. He has a super effective move he can use, but why hasn't he used it? Is it because he's taking things lightly since he's got one more team member left? I knew he wouldn't do any research on his opponent despite this being his 4th match. But now he's got his head up in the clouds when it's his chance. Looks like I had overestimated him, he says, walking back up the stadium stairs. Marvin turns to Casey saying, Miss Shield. Casey brings out her Pokédex entry on the G-Max Gengar, saying, Marvin, look at this. We have Gengar, the shadow Pokemon, Gigantamax. It lays traps, hoping to steal the lives of those it catches. If you stand in front of its mouth, you'll hear your loved one's voices calling out to you. That's terrifying. Hearing your loved one's voices, hoping to steal lives. The announcer then says, Challenger Henry isn't moving an inch. Beyond Gengar's mouth is said to be the underworld, the afterlife. Could it be that Challenger's sword is, at this moment, hearing the voices of his loved ones coming from the afterlife? That's kind of messed up. That's kind of messed up. But again, I do always appreciate that they include the Pokédex information in the manga. It never comes up in the anime most of the time. The ghostly voice of Henry's master says, You mustn't forget, sword. As long as the sword is sharp, can it cut through defense like a wall of iron? As long as the shield is firm and bulky, can it deflect all slashes and pierces? Gear is just the same. To improve something is not simply to seek an increase in strength. In fact, just aiming for strength can turn something weak in the ambitions and possibility. Treasure weakness and consider how to support it. Weakness in itself is not bad. Weakness in itself is not shameful. Those who reject weakness are unsuited to improve gear in Pokemon, because to improve is to embrace weakness and walk alongside it. Oh, dang. Honestly, if he was going to have a master, I would think it would be like Kurt or something, but then again, Kurt only crafted Pokeballs. I think Henry suddenly snaps out of it thanks to the roar of the crowd, but Alistair makes his move, telling Gengar to use Max Ooze once again. But Henry's eyes turn serious, and he commands Oranguru to use Max Guard, deflecting the attack. Marvin cheerfully calls out for Sword as Casey smiles. The Gigantamax on Gengar wears off. Oh, see, he says Dynamax, but it's Gigantamax, right? Is that a translation error? I don't know. Whatever. Henry says its Dynamax is worn off now. Max Darkness! And Oranguru unleashes the attack, instantly downing Gengar. The announcer says, and the victory goes to number 808 challenger Henry Sword, but she's suddenly interrupted by Casey blasting out at the top of her lungs, You did it, Sword! Deafening everyone around. As Henry recalls Oranguru, Alistair is at a bit of a loss. He thinks to himself, I forgot to praise his strong points. I'm a gym leader after all. He approaches Henry, but only manages to get out, that was amazing. You were so strong. But Alistair thinks to himself, that's not it. I want to tell him how impressive it was for him to have been able to still fight properly while still hearing the voices of the dead. But Henry shakes Alistair's hand saying thank you and walks off, leaving Alistair speechless. Later, as Henry exits, Marvin and Casey approach. Henry questions, What about your match, Casey? Casey says, they called it off because Alistair ran off somewhere. More importantly, you had me worried you were gonna run off to the afterlife yourself there. Marvin then says, did you really hear the voices of your loved ones? Henry, with that usual Cheshire smile, says, I did. I heard my master's voice. As Marvin and Casey follow, Marvin questions, you mean your Gearmeister master? Henry says, otherwise known as Dad. Marvin says, by Dad you mean, and I can't tell if it's Marvin shouting or if it's Casey saying, your dad? I think it's Marvin shouting. Henry says, right. I did tell you I was originally from a family of swordsmiths, didn't I? The techniques were only to be passed down to one child, and I was the successor. So that, of course, made my master my dad, right? Marvin then questions, you weren't unhappy with being the successor? Henry says, there are a lot of people who are, aren't they? Dad didn't intend to force me into it, but I thought what he did was interesting. So ever since I was small, I'd watch, learn, and help him. I guess I focused too much on the interesting part of things. I started to only see gear as tools for attacking in battles. I'd forgotten that gear are like a part of Pokemon's bodies, that they're things Pokemon need to live. I must have heard Dad's voice to remind me of that basic fact. Marvin then says, then your dad is... Henry says, I think he must have been relieved once he'd shown me the ropes. He went with good grace. But I didn't really know if that was actually my master's voice from the underworld. It could just as easily have been an auditory hallucination I heard because of Gengar's move's influence. But suddenly the announcer comes out, grabbing Henry's hand, carting him off, saying, would you mind repeating that story for us? In your victory interview. Oh, God. Leaving Henry to be interviewed. Oh, it looks like it's an adventure with Casey. As she grabs Marvin and heads out, saying, we're going to explore around town then. But Marvin then suddenly spots the RV, saying, hey, the professor's back. But they seem puzzled by something they see. Oh, it's Alistar. Oh, I almost completely forgot. Alistar has a Gengar, and he's using it to peek into the RV. Or is this Alistar? Alistar thinks to himself, I knew it. It's antique. Oh, it's a poltergeist. That's Professor Magnolia for you. She's got both Synestia and poltergeist in their super rare antique forms. I want to get a closer look. Should I ask her to show them to me, but what do I do if she says no? Wait, will I even be able to ask her properly in the first place? Only for Casey to come up, patting him on the back, saying, what are you doing, Alistar? Alistar freaks off and scampers off with his Gengar. But suddenly, there's a shake that vibrates the whole entire area. Magnolia comes out of her RV saying, what was that commotion just now? Alistar says, that came from near the stone side mural. I've got to go. And he rides his Gengar up the steps. Oh, right. Yeah, when this happened. As it comes into view, he sees a Copperajah slamming into the mural. As Alistar saying, oh no, there's a hole in the mural. A voice then says, over there next, Copperajah. Etana can send some wishing stars over there. Alistar says, stop, that's an important mural. But Bede simply says, what? I can't hear you very well. Only for Casey to shout, he's telling you to cut it out. Only for the mural to crack even more. Marvin muffling her voice saying, stop, your voice's volume made it worse. But Bede simply dismisses it saying, stop, don't be ridiculous. Chairman Rose asked me to do this for him. Magnolia says, it can't be. While Alistar says, you're lying. But Bede dismissively tells him, Chairman Rose lent me his Copperajah. He endorsed me, you know. I'm using the chairman's Pokemon to complete the mission that the chairman gave me himself. If anything, you lot should stop getting in my way. Suddenly, several... are these the Macrocosmos dudes, or are they the Pokemon League dudes? No, it's the League staff. Okay. Come rushing up the stairs towards everyone. Bede saying, perfect timing, take them away. Only for the League staff to immediately seize Bede. Bede says, what do you think you're doing? One of the League staff says, Oleana contacted us to have you immediately restrained. Bede says, restrained? Chairman Rose is the one who... Only for Oleana to arrive saying, Chairman Rose is the one who so happened to have told us to stop you. Bede says, Oleana, how useless of a secretary must you be? There's no way that the chairman would... Only for Chairman Rose to be there on top of his Copperajah saying, I did. I told them to restrain you. Oleana says, that's Bede. Chairman Rose says, I told them to restrain you. Bede is shocked saying, Chairman Rose. Marvin says, that man is Macrocosmos president and the league chairman. Magnolia says he is. Bede says, it's true Oh, wait. See, the voice bubble is coming out of Bede, but it's Rose speaking. Rose says, "It's true that I requested you gather as many wishing stars as possible, and for that purpose I lent you my Caparaja. I told you we needed them to protect the next 1,000 years of Gala's future, didn't I? That future is meant to include Gala's modern people, Pokémon, cities, nature, and of course its ruin. But instead you've gone and damaged and destroyed what you were to protect. You've got your priorities backward, and your youth all alone with a dim future. It reminded me a little bit of my past self. I saw talent in you, and that's why I sent you to a trainer school to draw it out of you. I wanted to give you a chance at a brighter future. Just when you'd had the chance to bring out your full potential, I see you've gone and drowned in that talent of yours. It's unfortunate." Bede grows angry, saying, "What?" Rose says, "Someone who destroys ruins without hesitation, someone who has no love for Gala, is not suited to take part in the gym challenge. I'm rescinding my request that you gather wishing stars. Give the ones you've gathered to the executive committee and return to Hammerlock." Bede says, "Hammerlock? But I was to battle this boy at Stowonside Stadium." The league official says, "Please return your challenge band as well." Bede says, "What?" Rose says, "You won't be needing it anymore." Young Oleana says, "Bede," and Rose says, "Bede. As of this moment, you are disqualified from the gym challenge. Your gym challenge ends here." This sends Bede spiraling. Yeah, I was kind of waiting for that moment. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Alright, we now cut over to chapter 15. Shocking. Reunion in the forest. And we have a cover with Alistair chasing after Poltergeist and Synesthesia. No, there's something looming in the background there too. Wonder what it is. We then cut over to Circhester at Circhester Stadium. We pick up with Melanie on her phone saying, "Did you hear that, Bay? Bede, the boy Chairman Rose endorsed, got disqualified. That really caught me by surprise. They said it was instant because it was his decision as chairman, right? I know he's the type of guy who always gets things squared away as soon as possible, but I can't believe you didn't come back from your training despite having challenges. What are you going to do if they decide to get rid of you?" Melanie walks past several league staff who, I don't know, give each other this weird look. As she exits, she's still talking with Bay, saying, "It's more disrespectful to battle challenges half-heartedly. Well, I do see where you're coming from, but..." As she leaves, the league staff talk to each other, the male saying, "Is Miss Melanie gone?" The female says, "She is." The male says, "All right. We finished rearranging the stadium, Gordy." Gordy says, "Thanks." Ah, okay. So I was told that they do have both the gym leaders and they kind of take shifts kind of situation, which I actually kind of like that idea of a gym being kind of ran in shifts rather than just exclusively by one person, especially if the person has other duties or other things they want to do. Gordy says, "Who will I be practicing with today?" Elisa says, "Samuel from Turffield Stadium and Julia from Hillberry Stadium are waiting for you." As Gordy heads off, the league staff sigh, saying to each other, "Those two are really if Gordy stopped being so insistent on avoiding his mother, our jobs would be so much easier." Yeah, that's right. Gordy has some kind of issue with his mom or something, right? Did that ever really pop up in the actual story? Oh yeah, because of his choice to go with a rock type. They had a bit of a falling out after they battled each other. Okay. Which is a bit of a shame. It's obvious that, because of the rare league card that Melanie has, it's obvious that she still cares for her son. I mean, of course she does. Melanie seems like a sweet lady. It's just that I think they're both a little too much like each other and that they're probably a little too stubborn. Alright, we pick up in Magnolia's RV as it's traveling down the trail. Or, no, it's more like it's at a rest outside of Stowonside, where Casey's hugging her Aracuna saying, "Oh, Kilo, we couldn't have beat Alistair without you. Thank you." Oh, okay, so I kind of assumed that maybe Casey would take on Bay instead, but no, it was all Alistair. Marvin then says that bite onslaught was impressive, but Henry seems to be kinda stuck on something. Marvin says, is something wrong, Sword? Henry says, yeah, I was just thinking about Bede. When Marvin just kind of crosses arms saying, Bede misused his authority as a trainer endorsed by the chairman to spout abuse, and he even ambushed you out of unjustified spite. Even if he hadn't vandalized the ruins, he'd done more than enough things to get disqualified. He did it to himself. Dang, Marvin. But I mean, he's right. That's the unfortunate part. Vandalism. Like it was already kind of sketchy, a lot of the stuff he was doing, but outright vandalism, yeah, that's enough to get you kind of disqualified for something. Henry says, I know about that. Isn't Chairman Rose the person who let Bede borrow his Pokémon and who gave him a secret mission in the first place also responsible for Bede's actions? Casey says, Sword has a point. Getting special treatment from someone so important could make anyone go a little wild. When he got the news, he was unexpectedly compliant. He didn't even resist when they took him away. Henry then says, Bede was all alone with a dim future. He caught Chairman Rose's eye and how he reminded the chairman of his past self, so the chairman gave him a chance at a brighter future. That's what he said, but he didn't even remember Bede's name, and he was unbelievably quick to take the chance away from him. Bede was supposedly working with Chairman Rose to protect Gala, everything about it in the current era, all the way until 1,000 years into the future. But Chairman Rose one-sidedly decided that Bede had no love for Gala, and that he was unfit to protect said future. What in the world did Chairman Rose consider Bede to be to Gala's region's future then? Magnolia then says, You're awfully harsh on Chairman Rose, wouldn't you say? Henry says, He may say a lot of charismatic-sounding things, but he strikes me more as the type of man who only does what he pleases. Magnolia says, Well, when he was involved with the Dynamax band's joint development, he did go around speaking fervently about how he was considering and doing certain things because of his love for Gala. In reality, though, he was supporting our region with his company, Macrocosmos, so it's hard for me to think he's all talk. Henry leans in, saying, I see. Magnolia then says, I do think, though, that he might have gone wrong in assuming Bede would behave the way he did just because of their similar backgrounds. Casey shouts, How would Bede even know what he expected? Marvin then notes, I think I'm starting to feel a little bad for Bede. But Marvin then notices, oh God, again with the ball guy. Wait, who's in the costume? Marvin freaking us as Miss Shield. If you're here, then who's the one there? Casey says, what? Marvin says, what's going on with that ball guy over there? Casey, spotting it, tells Aracuda to use water gun, blasting the ball guy. And it's Alistair. Why are you wearing the ball guy helmet, dude? Alistair, soaking wet, says, sorry. Casey says, Alistair, what did you stow away in here for? With Henry saying, we aren't on a ship, While Marvin says, what do you call it if it's in a car? And it's still stowing away. Well, Alistair can only get out an antique show. But what he means to say is, I wanted to ask Professor Magnolia if she could show me her antique forms synesthesia and poltergeist up close, but you all came back and I got scared and hid in the back room inside the bald guy costume. But then you started driving and found me while I was trying to figure out how to leave. But hearing only antique show, Casey says, Antique show? Oh, you want to go to an antique show? Gotcha. We can take you to one. Professor, do you know any good places nearby? Magnolia says, we're in Glimwood Tangled right now, so there won't be much around until we reach Belonia. But then he spots the Pokemon he was interested in, saying, whoa, antique synesthesia and poltergeist. Marvin sees his enthusiasm, saying, that's an expert for you. Curious about the professor's ghost types? Alistair's not really able to get out anything. But Marvin says, speaking of which, Professor, when exactly did you catch those two? Magnolia gets deadly serious, saying, oh, you won't believe what I did, silly old me. While I was traveling with Opal, we crashed into some dirt and one of the wheels fell off. The two of them were in the sink when I let the autodrive take us back to the road. and went to make some tea so I could calm down. They were both paralyzed. I suppose they must have run from a battle with another wild Pokémon. Suddenly, something jolts the RV. As they exit, Magnolia looks around saying, I can't believe this. This is the same spot where we crashed before. Casey looks at the console saying, Professor, you didn't overwrite the route record on the auto drive. That's why we ended up going the same way you took when you lost that wheel. But something seems to catch Alistair's attention, and he heads off on his Gengar. Casey sees this, calling out, Alistair, where are you going? I'm going to bring him back. Well, Henry can only call out to Casey as she takes off. Alistair thinks to himself, if this is the same place, I might be able to catch my own antiques in the stage and poltergeist. Ah, that's what he's after. Despite being a kid of few words, Alistair really kind of has his eyes on the prize when it comes to certain things. Suddenly, Derpy just clings to his head. Alistair says, a Derpy. He thinks to himself, it's hurt. I should use a potion. But Casey catches up saying, oh, there you are. Is there an antique show around here? She says, looking around, with Alistair not really knowing how to respond. But then something catches her attention. She says, this sound. He grabs Alistair saying, Alistair, have you seen a toxicity near here? Alistair can't really get his words out. I'm being shaken as Casey says, you haven't? But I thought I heard that bass-like sound my missing toxicity makes when the electric organs on its chest generate electricity. Alistair thinks to himself, low-key form toxicity all make a sound like a bass though. But then suddenly Casey says, yeah, but most sound like boom boom or zoom zoom, didn't they? Terra sounds more like a bass slap, like bum bum. Alistair's taken off guard saying, huh? And he thinks to himself, how did you know what I was thinking? the poor Rotom phone. Its eyes when Casey talks into it. She calls out, Thud, I might have found Terra. You can all go on ahead. And then she says to herself, but how should I go about looking around? It's pitch dark. Alistair thinks to himself, hold on. And he slaps one of the mushrooms and it lights up. Casey says, it's so bright. And then suddenly, toxicity comes leaping out, although its eyes are kind of crazed. I know it's not the right kind of toxicity, but toxicity, I'm putting it in here. It's a toxicity, thus I go with the D. That was a terrible pun. Casey calls out, Terra, it's me! But toxicity seems to be chasing after the Derpy. Casey says, you're going after that Pokemon. Casey slaps her head saying, oh no, it's that bad habit of yours at work again, isn't it? Alistair thinks to herself, habit? Casey says, it gets super mad when it picks on opponents it thinks are weaker, but turns out to actually be strong. Alistair thinks to himself, isn't it your Pokemon, miss? Casey, won't it listen to you if you give it a command? Casey says, that won't work. How do you know what he's saying? Look at his eyes. It's all eyes. Look at it. Its eyes are all crazy and it's covered in sweat, right? It gets agitated from how its poisonous sweat hurts its skin when it's mad. And when it gets agitated, it sweats even more and gets even more agitated and it gets tunnel vision. It can't even hear me. Alistair thinks to himself, so, once it's done fighting an opponent, it'll settle down. Derpy is so weak that even a baby could beat it. Casey looks at the Pokédex saying, huh? If that's the case, how come Terra hasn't beaten it? It's a dragon and ghost type, so poison and electric type attacks are only half as effective, but why? The Pokédex entry reads, Derpy, the lingering Pokemon. After being reborn as a ghost Pokemon, Derpy wanders the area it used to inhabit back when it was alive in prehistoric seas. Alistair thinks to himself, is it because, Dragapult comes blasting in, slamming into toxicity. Or, oh no, Dracoloque. Dracoloque? I always just think of Dragapult I only think of Dragapult. I didn't even think about this version. What is it? Its name derived from of dragon, drake, and cloak. So Dracloak. I think that's it. I also think its caretaker is here too. Casey looks at the Pokédex entry saying, huh? The Dex entry reads, Dracloak, the caretaker Pokemon. It's capable of flying faster than 200 kilometers per hour. It battles alongside Derpy and dotes on them until they successfully evolve. Casey says, 200 kilometers per hour? But toxicity then fires off a blast, but Dracloak manages to avoid it, once again slamming into Toxtricity. Casey says, "At this rate, Terra's never going to calm down. It can't keep up with those speeds. What are we going to do?" Alistair thinks to himself, all we really can do is wait for it to get tired. But Casey shouts, "No, I can't just stand here and watch my Pokemon get hurt until it faints." But the mushroom starts to lose its light as everything goes dark. Casey says, "What happened?" Alistair, thinking, but somehow Casey's able to hear. I'm still wondering, how is it that the quietest person and the loudest person can actually have a conversation? But Alistair thinks, the mushroom stopped glowing after a certain amount of time. If I shake it again, it doesn't take long for it to. But Casey says, "Wait, it's better if we stay in the dark. Since Terra is up against a Dracloak, that the darkness will work to Terra's advantage." Alistair says, "Why?" Casey says, "It's more or less about as strong as Terra." So in the darkness, Dracloak looks around confused, sees something glimmering in the darkness, and goes on the attack. Alistair thinks to himself, with Terra's mohawk lighting up like that, it's at a disadvantage because Dracloak can tell where it is. What advantage is Miss Casey talking about? Dracloak goes in high speeds for the attack, but as it gets close, Toxtricity is just I knew you were gonna go for it, buddy, and fires off, a snarl. Alistair says, it won. Casey says, "Yay!" Alistair then looks upon the situation, thinking to himself, I see. Because Derpy is weak, it ran away upon finding Terra's mohawk, but Dracloak has more confidence in its victory, so it's sure to charge at it. Then, as Dracloak approached, Terra used a counter move. Casey goes towards Toxtricity, saying, "Terra, you remember the strategies I taught you as Toxel. You're Terra, aren't you?" But Toxtricity turns away from her. Casey says, Huh? Did you notice that me and Kilo were here, and then you pretended not to because you wanted to win to show off? Are you all shy because you haven't seen us in a while?" And she nudges at Toxtricity, who blushes, saying, "You little stinker. Look at you trying to act all cool. You haven't changed a bit." I guess that really kind of explains how she could tell what Alistair is saying. She's used to people of few words. Oh, I love that she's holding on to her Toxtricity's hand like that. Alistair says, I'm glad for you." Casey gives a bow, saying, "We owe it all to you. Thanks, Alistair." But Alistair thinks to himself, "No, it's thanks to your voice. Terra really was agitated. It lost itself. Your voice, Miss Casey, had the power to bring Terra back to its senses. Your voice is wonderful. I'm really envious. Wait, I have to say that out loud. I'm a gym leader." And Casey blushes, saying, "Thank you." And Alistair says, "Huh?" And Casey just sticks her tongue out, saying, "I just got the feeling that you complimented my voice." Alistair is taken aback, saying, "It happened again. Can she read minds?" And then Casey just slaps him on the back, saying, "No, I can't. It's just that you may not talk much, but your body language and expressions speak enough for it by themselves. You know how we can tell when Pokemon want something or if they're stressed, kind of like that." She called you a Pokemon, buddy. Alistair says, He thinks to himself, Pokemon, that's right. And he takes a Pokeball over to the Dracloak and captures it. And Casey keeps helping people capture Pokemon. Between Hop and now Alistair, I wonder if there's something to that. I'm starting to kind of wonder. I wonder if Casey has an epitaph that's something she's known as. I don't think so. But she's more like an engineer or the tech. And so, I don't know. It's hard to really say. Casey does kind of come off as someone who would work on a Pokemon storage system, though. Casey then says, "Oh yeah, what's happening with today's gym battles? If you're not there, all of your challengers are gonna be stuck waiting." Alistair says, "There is." And Casey says, Bede, the other gym leader, wasn't there yesterday, so she must be taking on today's challengers, right? Alistair seems horrified, saying, "If she can tell that much from my body language, I must practically be pantomiming." Casey says, "At least that's what I read on the Gym Challenge Cup's homepage." Which just bowls Alistair over. Alistair gives a bow, saying, "Normally, challengers get to choose who they want to battle, but due to certain circumstances, everyone had no chance but choice but to battle me. As a gym leader, I have to apologize. But Casey says, you don't have to apologize. I was planning to battle you from the beginning, so you don't have to apologize. Alistair's a little taken aback. And Casey says, now then, let's go find you an antique show. The one thing she didn't get from his body language. That's unfortunate, though, because I kind of wanted to see Henry battle one and then Casey battle the other. So that's a bit of a shame, but I kind of like the moment they got to spend with Alistair. I mean, I would like that if at least Henry got to hang out with Bede a little bit. But we pick up at Bologna at the Bologna Stadium. Oh, where Henry encounters Opal. She says, oh, it's you. You've gotten as far as I'd expect you would. Henry gives a bow saying, I'm looking forward to our match. But Opal holds out her cane saying, her umbrella saying, just a moment, I can't let you onto the field just yet. Before I let you go, you've got to pass my quiz. First question, how old am I? 16, 88. Oh, here it comes. Opal and her questions. Alright, and the last chapter we'll be looking at for this video is chapter 16, Rising. Opal of Bologna. And it looks like both Henry and Hop will be involved in this. That's kind of cool. See, with this, Hop is already a lot more involved than Hal. Like, he's not a Pokedex holder, which is a shame, but he's already a lot more solidly involved than most other side characters. And that's what Pokemon was that? Alchemy? Yeah, Alchemy. Huh. Does Hop have the Alchemy? Because it doesn't really seem like Hal's style. Henry's style. Well, we pick up with Henry being a bit taken aback as Opal asks, now answer my quiz. How old am I? 16 or 88? Henry pauses for a moment and says, 88? Opal just gives him this look and then walks away saying, going in the order of application for a match, I'll battle you after I battle the boy who applied before you. I'll tell you the answer to the quiz then. As Henry exits, Marvin questions, what's wrong, Sword? Henry says, Opal said there's a challenger whose turn is before mine. Since I've got some free time now, Marvin, will you join me in some training? Marvin says, sure. Then up comes Hop saying, yo, Henry! Henry says, nice to see you, Hop. You must be the challenger before me. Hop says, did you get done in by the age-guessing quiz too? Henry says, you too. Hop says, what'd you answer? Henry says, 88. Hop says, I said 16. And Marvin questions, what kind of quiz was it? Hop says, I thought about answering the opposite. Oh no, it's Henry who says, I thought about answering the opposite too at first, but Hop says, me too, but then it'd be too easy of a quiz, right? Henry says, yeah. So I hesitated, wondering if it was some sort of trick. Hop says, well, I'll know the right answer soon. See ya. Henry waves him off, saying, good luck. Oh, so Hop's the first one we're gonna see battle this one, huh? It's kind of a shame we never actually got to see Bede be the star of a gym battle. But the announcer says, to everyone here and everyone viewing on broadcast, thank you for waiting. The challengers who've won and advanced here to Bologna Stadium have entered to battle our gym leader, Opal. First up to battle is uniform number 189, Challenger Hop. Hop sends out his pinch urchin, saying, let's go, pinch urchin. Opal says, you answered 16 to my quiz, right? Hop is taken aback, saying, yes. Opal says, you know. Hop says, yes. And Opal says, that was a good answer. Marvin can overhear the announcer call out, a challenger's Pokemon stats go up when they pass Opal's quiz. Hop passes, so his pinch urchin's attack and special attack have skyrocketed. Marvin is shocked, saying, 16 was the right answer. Did you hear that, Sword? If your status raises when you pass the quiz, but if you fail... But Henry says, Marvin, look at Sniffler. And Sobble evolves into Drizzle. Marvin says it evolved from Sobble into Drizzle. Henry then says, my Twiggy evolved into Thwacky. And Casey's Score Bunny evolved into Raboot. Sniffler's been our training partner, so I'd figured it was due to evolve. Drizzle is able to roll up moisture in its palms and turn it into water balloons, which it launches. I wanted to use that ability while we practice. Marvin says, sure thing, Sniffler? And Drizzle does just that, launching several water balloons all over the place, which just gotta fall to the ground. Henry says, that isn't quite what I expected. Marvin says, what do you mean? Henry says, that alchemy Opal had with her earlier. It looked like it was no ordinary alchemy. Milo's Eldegoss, Nessa's Dreadnought, Kabu's Centiscorch, Alistair's Gengar. It had the same imposing energy as the other gym leader's strongest Pokemon. Marvin says, so you think she'll Dynamax or Gigantamax alchemy as the ace up her sleeve? Henry says, yeah, apparently Gigantamax alchemy fires swarms of cream missiles. So I thought to counter that, we'd have to cut through all the cream. I see Sniffler's balloons don't really feel like a barrage of missiles, do they? And he pokes one and it explodes in his face. And he says, are you okay? Marvin says, whoa, they're just like mines. This won't help much with training, will it? But Henry says, after thinking for a moment, actually, Marvin, that's not true. Sniffler, could I get you to fire your water balloons again? And he does just that. Suddenly, League staff approaches, saying, there you are. Challenger Henry. Challenger Hot Smash has ended, so please come to the stadium at once. And he says, okay. As they enter, Ball Guy appears with a towel saying, you're both soaking wet. Here's a towel. Which freaks out Marvin for a moment, but he does allow the Ball Guy to clean him up. Henry says, I'm fine. See you later, Marvin. And Sniffler, thanks. Marvin says, I hope our training together helped. The announcer then says, excitement from Challenger Hop's victory still lingering in the air. Our second challenger has entered the stadium. Uniform number 808, Challenger Henry Sword. Opal then says to him, your answer was 88, right? Henry says, yes, it's incorrect, isn't it? Opal says, no, it's correct. It's right in terms of age, but it was wrong as a response. Oh, I forgot. Got Sirfetch. Oh, freaking leak. There you go. Sirfetch. Suddenly, for Sirfetch stats lower. The announcer says, Challenger Henry Sirfetch. His attack and special attack have fallen drastically. Marvin says, I knew it. The announcer then says, Opal's first Pokemon is Weezing. Galarian Weezing. With a pip-pip cheerio. Marvin says, another one. That's another regional form I've never seen before. One of those Galarian forms. Opal's a fairy-type expert, so is it fairy-type too? Henry brings out his Pokedex saying, Weezing is a poison and fairy-type. In that case, Lancelot, Steel Wing. Lancelot does just that, Sirfetch, and hits Weezing hard, but it doesn't seem to finish the job. Marvin says it's still up. It must be because Lancelot's attack and special attack were lowered. Opal then has Weezing use Sludge Bomb, but Lancelot manages to stave it off. Henry then calls out, one more time, Lancelot, Steel Wing. Oh, and it manages to take down Weezing in the process. Not bad. Opal says, looks like your moves and type advantage are helping you pull through. You're lucky you didn't get poisoned either, but it's in pain. It's terrible not being able to use all of your strength. Your next, Togekiss. And Henry says, switch out, Stealer. And he brings out his girder. Marvin thinks to himself, he withdrew his main force. He's saving it to battle alchemy with. Opal tells Togekiss to use Double Edge, while Henry tells Marvin to use Rock Slide, which, isn't Togekiss a flying type? Or is it just, flying fairy? Yeah, rock type move is gonna hurt it something awful. Yeah, Togekiss is instantly down. Dang. The announcer says, first went Weezing and now Togekiss is unable to battle. If Challenger Henry defeats one more of Opal's Pokemon, he'll be able to continue his gym challenge. Opal says, it's no wonder you've managed to make it this far. You're as lucky you have yet to get poisoned. But we can't just go and say go on ahead. We've got a duty to uphold. You answered correctly, but we're still punished. Even if you answer incorrectly, you can be rewarded depending on how you answer. You use your wit to grasp victory, even among that absurdity. I'm not just testing your talent in battle. I'm also testing you as a person with a heart. Henry then questions, why go so far? Opal responds, winners don't just get praise and adoration or just commentary. They still get exposed to slander, libel, misdirected inquiry, resentment, jealousy, envy, and distrust. If you can't sometimes take that on, reject it, or ignore and fend it off, you won't be able to stand at the top. Show me. Are you someone who will be able to go that far to continue the challenge? I mean, that's a hell of a statement, Opal, damn. And she brings out her alchemy. Marvin says, there it is, alchemy. And then, sure enough, she Gigantamaxes it. Gigantamax alchemy. Opal says, take that. A barrage of 100,000 calorie missiles. Oh, God, and it all goes off. But I didn't even see when, Henry just instantly already has his Sirfetch'd out. And Sirfetch'd goes a-dodging. Marvin says, our training worked. And I love that, Drizzle smiles. Marvin says, speeding through to avoid bursting tears, Sniffler's water balloons. He learned that from our training. Opal says, did you think it'd be harder to hit you since you're a smaller target? How sweetly naive, even sweeter than alchemy's cream. The announcer says, whoa, huge missiles are pouring down close. Ooh, there's cream everywhere. Marvin says, it doesn't matter how fast you can move if you got all those huge missiles coming at you at once. And Sirfetch'd does his best to get up after being creamed. It's almost looking like a scene from a different kind of manga. But Henry gets serious and decides to Dynamax. Opal says, that's right. Don't just try to get through with superficial wit. Go at things with a bang. Then this'll be a fight worthy of my departure. Henry says, huh? Opal then gestures to the drone, saying, you there, drone Rotom, come here for a minute. I, Opal, Balloon Leah's gym leader, am thinking about retiring after this tournament. I'll retire and go back to being a normal girl. Announcer says, huh? What? Then who'll be Balloon Leah's next gym leader? Back at Hammerlock, Bede is meeting with, I guess one of the officiants, saying, we finished processing the end of your challenge. Oleana has said that you can do as you please from here on out. That and Opal from Balloon Leah entrusted us with this. Bede takes the letter, but then crumples it, shoving it in his pocket. And suddenly there's a weird sound. The receptionist says, huh? What's that rumbling? And it even freaks out Bede a little. Bede says, that sound just now. Did it come from the energy plant? Ooh, got a lot going on here. Chairman Rose looking kind of ominous. You got a little bit of the divide between Gordy and Melanie, which they set that up pretty far in advance. I wonder how that's going to come into play. I liked how Casey could understand Alistair so clearly, but I really hope Bay plays a big part going forward. It's just unfortunate that she wasn't a part of the gym challenge. And Opal's been fun, but Opal's probably one of the most fun out of all the gym leaders of Galar. And with Bade's situation, it's kind of like, what does he do now? He's been kicked from his little position as Chairman Rose's poster boy. It's a question of how is Bede really gonna take that going forward? And I know because I played the game, but a lot of the stuff he has to deal with is like, there's this feeling of like, okay, it feels like Rose just kind of dismissed him a little too callously. So a lot of people's opinion of Chairman Rose is really starting to turn, and I kind of like how you can see that so clearly. In the game, it's very kind of murky. I don't feel like anyone really, if they did, it wasn't as clear to me as it is now. But then again, I played the game, so maybe it's a lot clearer because of that. But it felt like people were a little too quick to dismiss Bede with everything that happened. But from what I've heard and what I've been told, a lot of things are a lot more concrete and very, like, they clarify so many things that the game just kind of left up in the air, you know? And I'm really glad for that. So I can't wait to see more. Like, I've really been loving this storyline. But then again, Sword and Shield has a weirdly sweet place in my heart. Even though I was so gung-ho when it came to Sun and Moon, but I feel like the story of Sword and Shield in the manga It's just a little bit more clear and much better put together than I feel like Sun and Moon's was. Even though Sun and Moon was pretty solid in a lot of places, there were some gaps where I'm just like, oh, I feel like there was more you could have done, or you didn't go far enough with certain things. But with this, maybe because the storyline doesn't have too many moving parts, maybe they're able to work a little bit better with it. I don't know. But I'm enjoying myself. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also remember to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you in the next one. So then take care. Bye-bye.